Captain Kim Tae stood on the bridge of Earth's diplomatic ship New Seoul, watching the holographic display flicker to life. The alien faces that appeared made his stomach turn cold. There was Counselor Vexstar of the crystal-skinned Zephyrians, his body glowing with angry red light. Beside him floated the gaseous form of High Speaker Morden from the Nebula Collective, his cloudy form swirling with dark energy. The mechanical voice of Prime Unit 7743 from the Silicon Alliance completed. The trio, its optical sensors glowing with what humans had learned to recognize as contempt. Species designation, Human, Prime Unit 7743 began, its voice cutting through the bridge like a cold blade. The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding your continued presence in civilized space. Dr. Park Seo-jin, Earth's chief diplomat, stepped forward. She had spent 15 years building relationships with these species, learning their languages, understanding their cultures. Her hands trembled slightly as she prepared for what she somehow knew would be devastating news. After careful consideration of your species' actions over the past 50 years, the Council has determined that humanity poses an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. Counselor Vexstar continued, his crystalline features sharp with disdain. Your rapid expansion, aggressive colonization practices, and refusal to accept traditional territorial boundaries have created unnecessary tension throughout the galaxy. The words hit the bridge crew like physical blows. Lieutenant Commander Lee Min-ho, the ship's tactical officer, felt his jaw clench. Aggressive colonization? They had followed every protocol, respected every treaty, asked permission before settling each new world. What the aliens called aggression, humans called progress. High Speaker Morden's gaseous form pulsed with what appeared to be satisfaction. Therefore, the Council hereby orders all human settlements beyond your home solar system to be abandoned within 30 standard cycles. All humans must return to Earth and remain within the Sol system indefinitely. Any human vessel detected beyond the heliopause after this deadline will be considered an act of war. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain Kim Tae stared at the empty holographic projector, his mind racing. 30 cycles meant roughly 36 Earth days. Impossible. There were over 200 million. Humans living on 47 different worlds. The logistics alone would take years. Dr. Park Seo-jin broke the silence first. They're not giving us time to evacuate properly. They want us to fail, to leave people behind. Her voice carried a bitter realization. This isn't about territory or aggression. They're afraid of us. Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication officer, Ensign Choi Yu-bin, looked up from her console with wide eyes. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. It's encrypted with Omega-level security. The message that appeared on screen was brief but electrifying. Fleet Admiral Yang Dong-su's weathered face filled the display, his expression grim but determined. All diplomatic vessels return to Earth immediately. Operation Silent Dawn is now active. Repeat, Silent Dawn is active. We're not negotiating. And we're not begging. Humanity chooses its own path. Captain Kim Tae felt a chill run down his spine. Operation Silent Dawn was theoretical, a contingency plan developed years ago by Earth's military strategists. It assumed the worst-case scenario, that first contact with alien civilizations would eventually lead to conflict or expulsion. The plan was simple in concept but staggering in scope. If humanity was ever forced to leave galactic civilization, they wouldn't go quietly into exile. They would disappear completely, taking everything with them and emerge somewhere else stronger than before. As the new Sol changed course for Earth, Communications Officer Choi Yu-bin began receiving reports from human colonies throughout the galaxy. The messages were coded, but their meaning was clear. Colony administrators were activating emergency protocols. Industrial facilities were beginning shutdown procedures. Most tellingly, the massive cargo vessels that had been under maintenance at various human shipyards were suddenly becoming operational. Dr. Park Seo-jin pulled up the colony population charts on her personal tablet. 217 million humans scattered across 47 worlds, with established industries, terraforming projects, and growing civilizations. The aliens expected them to simply abandon everything and return to Earth like scolded children. They had no idea what humanity was actually planning. Lieutenant Commander Lee Min-ho studied the tactical displays showing alien fleet positions throughout the galaxy. The Council species had positioned monitoring stations near every human world, clearly expecting to oversee the evacuation and ensure compliance with their ultimatum. What they didn't know was that human engineers had been developing stealth technology far beyond anything the galactic community had seen. Ships that could bend light around themselves, mask their energy signatures, and move through space like ghosts. As Earth grew larger on the view screen, Captain Kim Tae allowed himself a grim smile. The Galactic Council had made a fatal miscalculation. They assumed humanity would react like the other species they had presumably bullied over the millennia, accepting exile with resigned compliance. They had no understanding of human history, of how his species responded to existential threats. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the destruction of their own environment. They had always emerged stronger. The Council wanted humanity gone from their galaxy. They were about to get their wish, but not in the way they expected. In 36 days, every human presence in Council space would vanish without a trace. But humanity wouldn't be returning to Earth to live in shame. They would be beginning the greatest adventure in their species' history, carrying their entire civilization to places the Council never dreamed of exploring. 3 weeks before the Council deadline, something impossible began happening across human space. On the planet New Kyoto, the Zephyrian monitoring station had been watching human evacuation efforts with growing confusion. Sensor operator Krixtal had been trained to observe and record everything, but what he was seeing made no sense according to his understanding of physics and technology. The humans appeared to be following the evacuation order, but their methods were completely wrong. Transport ships arrived at the planet, but the energy signatures were all different from normal human vessels. The ships seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting, it making them harder to see even with advanced alien sensors. Most strange of all, the orbital traffic showed ships arriving but never leaving, as if they were simply disappearing into thin air. Down on New Kyoto, surface engineer Cho Jin-woo supervised the most complex operation in human history. He stood in the control center of the main colony, watching hundreds of display screens showing evacuation progress across the entire planet. Each screen showed a different sector, and each sector was being systematically emptied using technology that the alien watchers could never imagine. Massive stealth transports hung in space above the planet like invisible mountains. Each ship was the size of a small city, but their hulls bent light around them so perfectly that even human sensors could barely detect them. The technology had been developed in secret over the past 20 years using principles that human scientists had discovered but never shared with the Galactic community. Technician Nam Hai-young reported from her station at the loading dock. Sector 7 is completely clear. All agricultural domes have been loaded onto transport vessel 847. All organic samples are secured, including soil samples, plant genetics, and even the decorative gardens from the city centers. Cho Jin-woo nodded, watching his tablet. As similar reports came from evacuation sites across the planet, the operation was proceeding exactly as planned. Humanity was not just evacuating, they were performing the most complete civilization transfer ever attempted. Every human-made structure was being carefully taken apart and stored. Every piece of technology, every cultural artifact, every genetic sample from Earth crops and animals was being preserved and packed away. Most importantly, every trace of human presence was being erased. Specialized cleaning teams moved through abandoned areas with molecular-level equipment that could remove even microscopic evidence of human occupation. Landing pads were restored to their original planetary surface. Atmospheric modifications were being reversed using advanced terraforming equipment that worked faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. Captain Song Mi Ran commanded the evacuation fleet from her flagship, the Invisible Dawn. Her vessel was a marvel of human engineering, capable of remaining completely undetected even while moving within a few kilometers of alien monitoring stations. As she watched the final transports load their cargo, She felt sad about leaving, but excited about what was coming next, the stealth technology that made this possible was humanity's greatest secret, while the Council species had focused on developing faster-than-light travel and exotic weapons. Human scientists had pursued a different path. They had become masters of invisibility, learning to manipulate electromagnetic radiation, gravitational fields, and even quantum signatures to make their ships effectively undetectable to alien sensors. All vessels report ready for departure announced. Navigation Officer Lieutenant Bae Kyung-ho, course is laid in for Rally Point Alpha. All stealth systems are operating at maximum efficiency. We are completely invisible to alien detection methods. Rally Point Alpha was humanity's greatest secret, a location so far beyond the galaxy edge that the Council species had never even sent probe ships there years ago. Long-range exploration vessels had discovered something extraordinary in that region of space. The remnants of an ancient civilization that had mastered technologies beyond anything the Council could imagine. As the evacuation fleets engaged their stealth systems and began moving toward the system edge, something amazing happened. The ships did not just become invisible, they seemed to stop existing entirely. Their gravitational effects disappeared. Their energy signatures vanished, and even their physical presence became undetectable by any known method. Back at the Zephyrian monitoring station, sensor operator Krixtal was becoming increasingly confused. His displays showed what appeared to be normal human ship traffic, but the energy signatures were becoming weaker and more dispersed by the hour. Human communication signals were fading. Energy outputs from the colony cities were decreasing to almost nothing. Most puzzling of all, orbital traffic patterns showed ships arriving, but never leaving, as if they were simply vanishing into the planet atmosphere. On New Kyoto surface, the final human team prepared to leave. Dr. Shin Jin, the colony chief scientist, took one last look around the empty research facility where she had spent 12 years of her life. Every piece of equipment was gone. Every data file had been transferred. Every experiment had been carefully preserved for continuation at their new destination somewhere beyond the galaxy edge. The facility looked exactly as it had when the first human colonists arrived 50 years ago. Every modification had been reversed. Every human addition had been removed. Even the memorial plaques commemorating the colony founding fathers had been taken away. It was as if humans had never existed on this world. Sergeant Major Park Woo Jin, leader of the military unit responsible for final cleanup, checked his team equipment one more time. His soldiers had spent the last week ensuring that no human technology or materials remained behind. They had used advanced molecular scanners to detect and remove every trace of human presence down to individual atoms. It's time, he announced, and his team moved toward their transport. The ship that would carry them away from New Kyoto was itself invisible, using the same advanced stealth technology that had made the entire evacuation possible. As they lifted off from the planet's surface, Dr. Shin Jin watched through the viewport. As the world fell away, the cities they had built were gone. The roads they had carved through forests had been restored to wilderness. The spaceports they had constructed were now empty fields covered with native vegetation. In a few more hours, atmospheric processors would complete the job of removing every trace of human-modified air composition. The same impossible scene was playing out across 47 worlds on New Bezan. The massive industrial complexes that had produced starship components for the entire human fleet vanished into cargo holds, leaving behind pristine mountain ranges that showed no sign of ever being developed. The floating cities of Aquatica were disassembled and packed away, their inhabitants relocated to identical structures aboard the massive Ark ships. Even the underwater colonies on Poseidon were carefully extracted, their pressure domes and life support systems transferred to specialized vessels designed to recreate ocean environments in space. The operation was so complete that marine biologists took samples of every species in the colony ecosystems, ensuring that entire underwater worlds could be recreated at their destination. By the time 3 weeks had passed, every human colony in Council territory showed the same impossible result: complete abandonment without any trace of where the inhabitants had gone. No ion trails led away from the planets. No gravitational disturbances indicated the passage of large fleets. No communication signals betrayed their destination. Most incredibly, the planets themselves looked exactly as they had before human colonization began. The monitoring stations throughout Council space reported the same bewildering data. The humans had simply vanished, taking their entire civilization with them. It was as if 200 million people had ceased to exist, leaving behind worlds that appeared to have never been colonized at all. The greatest evacuation in galactic history had been completed without leaving a single clue about where humanity had gone. What the Council did not realize was that those 200 million humans were very much alive, traveling in the largest stealth fleet ever assembled toward a destination that would give them advantages the established galactic powers could never imagine. Asterisk 6 months after the Council deadline, Captain Yoon Haisu stood on the observation deck of the exploration ship Pathfinder, staring at something that no member of the Galactic Council had ever seen. Before her stretched the rim barrier, a massive wall of gravitational storms and deadly radiation that marked the edge of the galaxy habitable zone. The barrier had kept every known species trapped in the inner galactic regions for millions of years. Today, humanity was about to break through it and discover what lay beyond. The breakthrough had come from Dr. Lee Sang, metaphysicist who had spent 15 years studying the strange energy patterns at the galaxy edge. While other species saw the REM barrier as an impossible wall that destroyed any ship trying to pass through it, he had recognized something completely different. The barrier was not a natural phenomenon trying to keep ships out. It was an artificial defense system designed to protect something on the other side. Quantum drive systems show green across all 10,000 vessels, reported Chief Engineer Kim Dong-hyun from the bridge. All ships are in perfect formation and ready for barrier penetration. The fleet has never looked better, sir. Behind the Pathfinder, the largest human fleet ever assembled waited in formation. Their ships had been completely redesigned using technology that the Council species could never imagine. The hulls were reinforced with materials that could absorb deadly radiation and convert it into power. The engines used gravitational manipulation systems that could turn the barrier storms into acceleration lanes. Instead of obstacles, the human fleet approached the barrier with confidence that came from years of preparation. As they entered the outer edge of the storm zone, radiation levels that would have instantly killed any Council species were absorbed by their specially designed hull plating. The gravitational anomalies that had destroyed countless alien exploration probes were used as speed boosters by ships equipped with human-developed inertial control systems. Scout Commander Park Jin-soo led the advanced reconnaissance team through the barrier in his ship Far Horizon. As they pushed deeper into the storm zone, his sensors began detecting energy patterns that defied everything the galactic community thought they knew about physics. The readings showed massive artificial structures on the other side of the barrier, structures that were not only intact but actually operating. Captain Yoon, we need to see this immediately, he transmitted back to the main fleet. The sensors are picking up artificial installations that are larger than anything we have ever encountered, and they appear to be active as the human fleet emerged on the far side of the rim barrier. They found themselves in a region of space that challenged every assumption about galactic civilization. Dozens of star systems stretched before them, each one containing worlds that had been terraformed using technology far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. Most incredibly, many of the planets showed signs of ongoing automated maintenance, as if they were being kept ready for new inhabitants. The first human colonies beyond the rim were established on worlds that seemed to have been prepared specifically for them. Engineer Yang Min-young supervised the establishment of New Terra, humanity's first extra-galactic colony on a planet that automated systems had been maintaining in perfect condition for millions of years. The planet's atmospheric processors are operating on principles that our best scientists are still trying to understand, she reported to Colonial Governor Choi Seung-ho. They can transform a dead world into a garden planet in a matter of months, not centuries. The power generation systems tap directly into stellar energy using methods that make our fusion reactors look like primitive campfires. But the most important discovery came from xenorchaeologist Dr. Kim Yu-young, who had been studying the massive installations that covered several worlds in the region. Working with a team of human linguists and computer specialists, she had been trying to decode the information systems left behind by whoever had built these incredible structures. What she found changed everything humanity thought they knew about galactic history. The species that built these installations was not the first to be exiled by a galactic council, she announced during a colony-wide broadcast that reached every human settlement in the region. According to the records we have decoded, there have been dozens of different galactic civilizations over the past 10 million years. Each one followed the same pattern: older species establish control, maintain stability by suppressing younger races, and eventually exile anyone who becomes too advanced or independent. The implications were staggering. The current Galactic Council was not a permanent institution representing galactic civilization. They were simply the latest group to hold power in the inner galaxy, maintaining their position by preventing younger species from advancing beyond their control. The pattern had repeated itself countless times throughout galactic history. Every species that was exiled and managed to survive eventually returned to reclaim the galaxy. Dr. Kim continued, but they did not return as conquerors seeking revenge. They came back as liberators, bringing advanced technology and new ways of organizing galactic society. The civilizations that chose cooperation over control, innovation over stagnation, as human colonies spread throughout the outer galaxy region, they discovered that they were not alone beyond the rim. Other exiled species had found their way there over the millennia. Some recently arrived and others established for thousands of years. The difference was that none of them had possessed the combination of determination, technological adaptability, and organizational skills that humanity brought to the region. Commander Na Jae-wook established first contact with the Wanderer Coalition, a loose alliance of species that had been cast out by various galactic councils throughout history. Their technology was advanced, but their numbers were small and their worlds were scattered across vast distances. They had survived their exile but had never thrived enough to consider returning to the inner galaxy to challenge their former oppressors. Your species is different, explained Elder Zeph Tar of the Crystal Singers, a beautiful race of beings who communicated through harmonic frequencies that could create music from pure thought. In just 6 months you have established more permanent settlements than we managed in 6 centuries. Your organizational abilities and technological innovation exceed anything we have seen in our long exile. The Wanderer Coalition offered humanity something invaluable: detailed intelligence about the inner galaxy political situation. Accumulated over millennia of exile, they knew the weaknesses of the Council, species, the fault lines in their alliances, and most importantly, the growing dissatisfaction among younger species still trapped within Council territory. The ancient installations provided humanity with technologies that revolutionized their understanding of physics, engineering, and even biology. Medical advances eliminated aging and extended human lifespans to over 300 years. Manufacturing systems could build entire cities in weeks instead of years. Transportation networks could move ships across vast distances instantly using principles that the Council species had never discovered. As human colonies continued to expand and human technology continued to advance, with help from the ancient installations, reports began filtering back to the inner galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations detected gravitational anomalies, suggesting massive construction projects beyond the rim. Long-range sensors picked up energy signatures using principles the Council species did not recognize. Most disturbing of all, several Council exploration vessels sent to investigate the outer territories had simply vanished. Their last transmissions reporting encounters with unknown vessels of superior technology. The Council was beginning to realize that their exile of humanity had not eliminated a threat. It had created something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. A united coalition of exiled species led by the most adaptable and innovative race they had ever encountered was building a new civilization beyond their reach. 2 years after humanity exile, Admiral Choi Sang-ho stood in the command center of New Terra Prime, watching holographic displays that showed the impossible scope of human achievement beyond the rim. The transformation had been breathtaking. 50 worlds now bore human cities connected by quantum communication networks that operated faster than anything the Council possessed. Orbital installations the size of small moons processed resources from asteroid belts, while automated factories produced ships and equipment using designs recovered from ancient technology. The command center itself was a marvel that combined human engineering with recovered alien technology. The walls were made of materials that could change their properties, instantly becoming transparent to show the stars outside or opaque to display tactical information. The control systems responded to thought, as well as touch, allowing operators to manage incredibly complex operations with unprecedented efficiency free from the restrictions and regulations that had limited their growth in Council space. Humanity had exploded outward with an energy that surprised even their own leaders. The ancient technologies they had discovered did not just provide them with advanced tools, they had revolutionized human understanding of physics, engineering, and even biology. Dr. Shin-Min Young, director of the Advanced Research Institute, presented her latest findings to the Colonial Assembly with excitement that she could barely contain. The medical technologies we have recovered from the ancient databases have eliminated aging as we know it. Human life expectancy has increased to over 300 years, and our physical and mental capabilities have been enhanced beyond anything we thought possible. The implications were staggering. Humanity had always been considered one of the shorter-lived species in galactic civilization, reaching maturity quickly but having relatively brief lifespans compared to races like the crystalline Zephyrians or the gaseous nebula collective. Now human colonists were living longer than most Council species while maintaining their rapid reproduction rates and aggressive expansion patterns. But the most significant development was the establishment of the Outer Rim Alliance, a formal confederation between humanity and the other exiled species they had encountered under human leadership. The scattered refugee populations had been organized into a coherent political and military force for the first time in their history. Ambassador Li Sujin, humanity chief diplomat to the alliance, had spent months negotiating the complex treaties that bound dozens of different species together. What we have created here is not just a government, she explained to Colonial Governor Park Dong-min. It is a completely new model for galactic civilization. Instead of the council hierarchy where older species control younger ones, we have built a system based on mutual cooperation and shared advancement. The alliance military capabilities were equally impressive. Fleet Admiral Jang Kyung-min commanded a combined force of human and alien vessels that utilized technologies the council had never encountered. Human stealth systems, combined with Crystal Singer harmonic weapons and Voidwalker dimensional manipulation, created a military force that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning and strike with devastating effectiveness. The ships themselves were works of art as much as weapons of war. Human engineering had been enhanced with alien aesthetic sensibilities, creating vessels that were both beautiful and terrifying. The flagship New Dawn looked like a flowing sculpture made of liquid metal, but its weapons could destroy entire fleets, and its defenses could withstand attacks that would vaporize Council vessels. Meanwhile, back in Council space, the political situation was becoming increasingly unstable. The complete disappearance of humanity had sent shockwaves through the younger species still under Council control. If humans could be exiled so easily despite their apparent compliance with all treaties and regulations, what was to stop the same fate from befalling others who showed too much independence or innovation? Captain Yu Sung-min, commander of the intelligence vessel Silent Observer, monitored communications throughout Council territory from his position just beyond the Rim barrier. The reports he intercepted painted a picture of growing unrest and dissatisfaction with Council rule that was spreading like a virus through their carefully controlled territories. The Arcturus Federation is questioning their tribute payments, he reported during his weekly intelligence briefing. The Centauri republics have begun conducting unauthorized exploration of systems the Council declared off limits. Most significantly, over 40 younger species have submitted formal requests for information about human evacuation methods. The Council response to these developments was predictably authoritarian. Trade restrictions were imposed on species that asked too many questions. Exploration fleets were assigned Council observers to ensure compliance with territorial boundaries. Most telling of all, the military forces of the three dominant Council species began conducting joint exercises near the territories of younger races. Clear demonstrations of power intended to discourage further dissent, but the Council heavy-handed. Tactics only accelerated the growing rebellion against their authority. Deep space communication networks that the Council could not monitor began carrying messages between dissatisfied species. Underground organizations formed to share information about the Council's true history and the fate of previously exiled races. The breakthrough came when Dr. Kim Yu-sung, working with Alliance Intelligence Services, managed to decode and broadcast the complete historical records recovered from the ancient databases. The transmissions revealed the true pattern of galactic civilization, millennia of cyclical rise and fall with dominant species, maintaining power by suppressing innovation and exiling potential competitors. The current Council species are not the natural leaders of galactic civilization. The broadcast explained they are simply the survivors of the last great Exodus species that chose conformity over advancement and now maintain their position by preventing others from surpassing them. The real leaders of galactic progress have always been the exiled species who used their freedom to advance beyond the limitations imposed by fearful rulers. The revelation that the Council races were themselves once subject to similar restrictions created a crisis of legitimacy that spread throughout their territory. Species that had accepted Council authority as the natural order of things began to question why they should submit to rulers who had achieved their position through accident of timing rather than natural superiority. As unrest grew throughout Council space, the Alliance began receiving unprecedented numbers of communication requests from species seeking information about joining their confederation. The messages were always carefully coded and transmitted through hidden networks, but their meaning was clear. Significant portions of the galaxy population were ready to abandon the Council system for something better. The requests came from unexpected sources: military commanders tired of being held back by obsolete tactics, scientists frustrated by research restrictions imposed by fearful bureaucrats, entire colonial governments that wanted to pursue their own development without interference from distant rulers who had never visited their world's fleet. Admiral Jiang Kyung-min began preparing for what seemed increasingly inevitable. The Council will eventually decide that they cannot allow our alliance to continue existing, he warned the Assembly. They will see our success as an existential threat to their authority. When that happens, they will come for us with everything they have. But humanity and their allies had advantages the Council could not imagine. Their technology was more advanced, their society was more adaptable, and most importantly, they had something the Council species had lost millennia ago: the hunger for growth and exploration that drove civilizations to greatness. As Alliance fleets began conducting reconnaissance missions closer to Council space, they found a galaxy ready for change. Younger species were organizing resistance movements. Older Council client states were questioning their allegiances, and even some members of the Council species themselves were beginning to doubt the wisdom of their isolationist policies. The stage was being set for a confrontation that would determine the future of galactic civilization, and humanity intended to be ready for it. The crisis came exactly as Fleet Admiral Jiang Kyung-min had predicted, but even he was unprepared for the scale of the Council response. 3 years after humanity Exile, the largest military fleet in recorded galactic history assembled at the edge of Council space, preparing for what their leaders called Operation Final Solution. The name itself revealed how desperate and frightened the Council had become. Intelligence Officer Captain Yu-sung transmitted the grim details to Alliance headquarters. From his hidden observation post deep in Council territory, 8,000 vessels from all three Council species, armed with their most advanced weapons and equipped with new sensor arrays designed specifically to penetrate our stealth systems. This is not a limited military action. They are planning the complete destruction of our alliance and every species that has joined us. The Council fleet was truly massive, beyond anything seen in galactic history. Zephyrian crystal ships that could focus stellar energy into planet-killing beams, nebula collective vessels that could phase in and out of normal space to avoid counterattacks, Silicon Alliance dreadnoughts with armor that could withstand the explosion of small stars. The combined firepower could destroy entire solar systems, but the Council had made a fatal miscalculation. They assumed that humanity and their allies would react defensively, trying to hide behind the rim barrier, while the Council fleet systematically destroyed their colonies. Instead, Alliance High Command had spent 2 years preparing for this moment with a strategy that would turn the Council's greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Instead of waiting for the Council to attack them, the Alliance would strike first, not with weapons but with something far more powerful. They would offer the Council something they had never experienced in their millions of years of dominance: a choice between destruction and evolution. Ambassador Li Su-jin materialized in the Council chambers. Via holographic projection, her image appearing without warning in the middle of their emergency session. The technology that made this possible was beyond anything in Council databases, a demonstration of just how far the Alliance had advanced beyond their former masters. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Prime Unit 7743 of the Silicon Alliance began issuing rapid computational bursts that served as their species equivalent of panic. High Speaker Mordin gaseous form churned with dark energy, while Counselor Vextar crystalline body flashed through spectrum of angry colors that indicated extreme agitation and fear. Impossible, Vextar declared, his harmonic voice resonating with disbelief. Our long-range sensors show no significant civilizations beyond the rim barrier. The gravitational anomalies and radiation storms make permanent settlement impossible. No species has ever survived passage through the barrier. Ambassador Li smiled, her expression carrying just a hint of the contempt that humanity had learned to feel for their former oppressors. Your sensors show what we choose to let them see. Your understanding of the rim barrier is based on technologies and principles that we surpassed long ago. Most importantly, your knowledge of what lies beyond the edge of your carefully controlled territory is approximately 10 million years out of date. The holographic display behind her activated, showing images that stunned the Council into complete silence. Vast cities that floated in space like artificial planets, industrial complexes that dwarfed anything in Council territory. Most shocking of all, fleets of ships whose design principles were clearly far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. We are no longer the primitive, limited species you exiled 3 years ago, Li continued. We have become something you never had the vision to imagine: a truly cooperative galactic civilization based on growth, innovation, and mutual advancement rather than fear, stagnation, and control. As she spoke, reports began flooding into the Council chambers from monitoring stations throughout their territory. Ships were decloaking around every major Council world, not as an invasion force but as a demonstration of capability. The vessels were clearly of Alliance origin, their technology incorporating principles the Council species could not begin to understand. The ships appeared everywhere simultaneously around the Zephyrian homeworld. Crystalline vessels that seemed to be made of living light materialized from nothing near the Nebula Collective core worlds, ships that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions the Council had never discovered showed themselves above the Silicon Alliance manufacturing centers. Vessels that appeared to be constructed from pure energy took positions that demonstrated complete tactical superiority. Dr. Park So-young, now serving as the Alliance Chief Scientific Coordinator, appeared alongside Ambassador Li to present the Council with their options. Our analysis of galactic history shows that this moment has occurred dozens of times over the past 10 million years. Established civilizations attempt to maintain control by suppressing younger species until eventually those species develop beyond their ability to contain. The historical parallels were undeniable, and more importantly, they revealed the inevitable outcome of the current crisis. Every previous Galactic Council had eventually been replaced by the civilizations they had tried to suppress, not through conquest, but through the simple fact that innovation and growth always triumph over stagnation and control. You have two choices, Dr. Park continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent years studying the rise and fall of galactic civilizations. You can attempt to destroy us following the same failed strategy that has led to the collapse of every previous galactic order, or you can join us in building something better. The offer that followed was unprecedented in galactic history. Rather than demanding surrender or subjugation, the Alliance was proposing integration. Council species that chose cooperation over conflict would be welcomed as equals in a new galactic confederation. Their knowledge and experience would be valued, their territorial claims respected, and their populations given the same opportunities for advancement that Alliance species enjoyed, but the most compelling part of the offer was the demonstration that followed. Alliance vessels began broadcasting on all frequencies throughout Council space, not with threats or demands but with invitations. They offered any individual, any community, any world that was tired of Council restrictions the opportunity to join them in territories where civilizations could grow without artificial limits. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Entire species announced their intention to leave Council space following the path that humanity had blazed 3 years earlier. Colonial worlds declared independence and requested Alliance protection. Even some populations within the core Council territories began organizing exodus movements. Captain Song Mi Ran, now commanding the Alliance flagship New Dawn, watched the Council carefully maintained order collapse in real time. Intelligence reports indicate that over 60% of Council territory is now in various stages of revolt or exodus, she reported to Alliance High Command. Their military fleet is being recalled to maintain order in their core systems. Operation Final Solution has been cancelled. The final irony came when the Council species themselves began to fragment. Younger generations who had grown up hearing stories about the galaxy beyond the rim began questioning why they should remain bound by the fears and limitations of their elders. Reform movements within the Silicon Alliance, the Nebula Collective, and even the rigid Zephyrian hierarchy began advocating for joining the new galactic order rather than fighting it. 6 months after Operation Final Solution was cancelled due to internal rebellion, the Galactic Council formally dissolved itself. In its place, a new galactic confederation was established with headquarters on New Terra Prime, governed by principles of cooperation, innovation, and unlimited growth. The species that had once ruled the galaxy through fear and control were welcomed as founding members of the new order, their experience and knowledge valued even as their authoritarian methods were abandoned. But they were no longer the dominant powers determining the fate of younger species. Instead, they were participants in a galactic civilization that valued diversity, encouraged advancement, and recognized that the universe was vast enough for everyone to find their own path to greatness. Humanity had been exiled from the galaxy for being too aggressive, too innovative, and too unwilling to accept limitations on their growth. 3 years later, they had transformed that exile into the foundation of a new galactic order that offered every species the same opportunities for advancement that had driven human civilization to greatness.